Hello and welcome to today's lesson where we're looking at the rhetorical triangle and how to use it to create a persuasive argument. Rhetoric is defined in the English dictionary as the art of persuasive speaking or writing. So what that means is the rhetorical triangle is a tool that helps you formulate your thoughts so you can clearly present your position in a persuasive way. Master using this tool and people will clearly understand your message and they'll be heavily persuaded by your argument. So the concepts of the rhetorical triangle were first described by Aristotle in one of the first great books about rhetoric, which surprisingly enough was called Rhetoric. Now, in the book, Aristotle outlines 3 rhetorical appeals. And another way to say this is that he outlined 3 strategies to persuade. These were called logos, pathos, and ethos. These 3 strategies make up the rhetorical triangle, although it's worth noting that Aristotle himself never represented it as a triangle, like we have here. Now, the rhetorical triangle basically gives us 3 methods of persuasion. You could make an argument using just one of the methods, or you could combine any 2 methods or even any 3 methods. So what do each of the points on the triangle mean? Well, first, logos. This is the main body of your argument and it's designed to appeal to reason. Now, using an appeal to logos, you basically attempt to use facts, truths, and logic to appeal to the reason of your audience. Pathos is an appeal to your audience's emotions. So you could, for example, move your audience to want to feel young, so as they maybe want to buy a cosmetic product from you. Alternatively, you could move them to sadness to get them to donate to a charity. And ethos is the speaker's or the writer's credibility and authority to be able to talk or write about the topic in question. Now, for example, your doctor has ethos and it comes from the years of training required to become a doctor. So because of these qualifications and years of training, you will listen to their opinion on medical subjects. You might not listen on other subjects, but on medical subjects you will listen. Now, one way to think about the points on the rhetorical triangle is as ingredients you can use in any combination to create your argument. Now, all you really need is a little imagination to find the right set of ingredients to suit the needs of your audience. So suppose as an example that you wanted to persuade your bosses at work to approve a proposal that you're presenting. So initially you think about presenting the facts, which is logos, and that might include things as the untapped market opportunity, how much work would be needed to implement the plan, the financial rewards, etc., etc. And with this argument, you're obviously making a logical appeal. But upon reviewing the rhetorical triangle, maybe you decide that a little emotional appeal or ethos before presenting your logical argument might make the leadership team a little bit more receptive to your ideas. So in this case, you begin by explaining the dire consequences to the business and each member of the leadership team, your bosses, of not implementing your plan. What are the consequences to them personally? So only after you've made this emotional appeal do you move on to your logical argument. Now, in this example, you're already known to your bosses, so you don't need to outline your credibility on this subject, pathos. But as you can see, using the rhetorical triangle in this way can help you create a much stronger argument. So here's a six-step process you can use to position any argument using the rhetorical triangle. So firstly, determine your purpose. What do you want from your argument? Do you want agreement? Do you want to make people laugh? Or do you want to rouse people into action? Write down the exact purpose of your speech or document. Next, say why they should listen to you. So specifically, what are your relevant credentials, along with any beliefs or values you have that are relevant to what you're speaking or writing about? The next step is to understand your audience. Who are they? Why are they listening? And what are their expectations from you and your speech or document? Next, you want to connect emotionally. So determine how you want to connect emotionally and what emotion do you want to elicit. Do you want to elicit sadness, greed, excitement, etc. Next, you want to deliver your content. So logically structure your arguments and back them up with credible facts and statistics. And finally, you need to cover any surrounding information. So this is any additional background information which not directly and succinctly relevant to your argument could help strengthen it. So this includes things like useful background information or identifying counter arguments and then addressing them during your speech or your writing. Now, that was a very brief overview of the rhetorical triangle and the steps needed to use it. On the next few slides, there are some questions you can use which can help you put together your argument and make sure your argument is solid. So when it comes to the message, here you're trying to present your argument in as logical a way as possible. Now, some of the key questions to ask to help keep yourself on track with this are, are there any logical errors in my argument? Do I jump to conclusions at any point? Do I use credible evidence to support my claims? What are the counter arguments? And have I dealt effectively with each? Is the flow of my argument logical? And is that the best or most logical flow to present? And do my conclusions make sense? So by connecting with your audience through reason, you demonstrate to your audience that what you're saying is reasonable. And that might sound obvious, but it is important. Now, when it comes to pathos and your audience, here you're trying to present your argument in a way that emotionally appeals to your audience. So some of the key questions to ask to keep yourself on track with this appeal are, which emotion am I trying to appeal to? Is it sadness, greed, pride, fear, being young, being old, anger, patriotism, love, desire, etc.? Have I tried to establish some common ground with the audience? Now, another way to say this is, have I laid out what I as the speaker or writer have in common with my audience? And finally, have I built on this common ground to make the audience really care? So by connecting with your audience through emotion and common ground, you move your audience towards being much more likely to agree with your later logical message. So when it comes to you yourself, the speaker or ethos, here you're trying to present your credentials as a speaker or writer. Now, if you're going to communicate with any power, then it's important that your audience knows who they're dealing with. And some of the key questions to ask to keep yourself on track with this appeal are, have I explained my qualifications? Have I explained what qualifies me to speak on this topic? And are those credible? Is the tone of what I'm saying suitable for my audience? Are the choice of words I'm using suitable? All things considered, do I present myself in a professional way? Do I look right for what I'm trying to say? Now, by explaining to the audience your credentials, you'll be much more likely to gain their trust. Now, Note that facts and information you want to present don't always fall cleanly into one of the above three categories. So, as an example, if you use an expert quote, this could be both pathos and logos. So that means it could be both the speaker and the message, because it kind of shows that you've researched your topic and that increases your credibility, which is pathos, but it also adds weight to your reasoned argument, and that's logos. In summary, the art of persuasive speaking or writing is a learned habit that can be improved over time. The rhetorical triangle gives us a framework we can use to create compelling and persuasive speeches and written documents. To be effective, a persuasive speech must do three things. First, it must identify you as trustworthy in your audience's mind. Second, it must connect emotionally with the audience to move them into action. And third, it must contain a logical and reasoned proposal or argument. Now, by following the 6 steps outlined in this presentation, you can dramatically improve the chances of your next speech or written assignment being both more persuasive and having a greater dramatic impact on your audience. That is it for this lesson. Hope you enjoyed it. Look forward to speaking to you next time.